we have to understand, that there are things that God cuts away, not because he's against us, not because Mungu anakuonea, we have nothing, but because he loves us. This is a truth I want us to carry from the beginning, that pruning is not proof that God has rejected you. In fact, according to the verse that we have read, it is the fruitful branches that get pruned. You are but he's telling us, for him to have more, he's reducing. You know, think about Gideon, from 32,000 to 300. And yet, he bore fruit. Had he gone with 32, we don't know what would have happened, and we are glad we don't have to know. So, pruning, he's saying he's pruning, he's cutting for more fruit. And I want us to explore, what does pruning for holy refinement look like? What does it mean when God is cutting away things? What does it mean when things are being stripped of me? How, Pastor Shaan, how are you saying that while I'm losing things, I'm actually gaining? That math does not math. You know, that math does not math. So that's something I want us to explore. And one of our first point is going to be that God prunes because he loves. God prunes because he loves. There is God's love in refining us. There is God's love as he cuts away. We get to experience his love, and there is nothing more powerful, more life-changing, more life-transforming than love. He says, every branch that bears fruit, he prunes. That's how wengine tuko karibu kusema, let me not bear fruit, because when God starts cutting, I'm not sure what he's going to cut. Every plant that bears fruit, that's the one he cuts. Even me, it did not make sense. You'd want to leave something that makes, if it works and it's producing, so you leave it to continue producing. How do you mean you're cutting? But that's how Jesus is working. Every branch. Pruning is not rejection. Pruning is God's investment. Pruning is God's investment in your future. I want you to think about it. When something is left to grow at its, whatever you want to do. But when someone takes time to pour into your life, they're investing. So by the time a farmer takes time, gets a panga, gets a hoe, you know, sometimes I don't know which one stands for what. When someone gets a nkumbi, nafune jambia, a panga, and goes and starts cutting, that is not rejection. That is love. When someone takes time and says, Minister Shai, I'd like to talk to you. See, the other time, this and this didn't go well, so I'm thinking. That is not rejection. That is not someone coming out together and saying, listen, I love you so much. I want you better. And for you to be better, this might be working, but it needs to stop so that we can explore what works better. That is what happens. We are pruned because God loves us, because he's investing. I stopped when I was thinking about this, of the things that God pruned and I was holding on to, and I asked myself, Namuddu, wandi badewa, where would you be had you held on to this? Our young people, that chum chum, that one that you feel, you know, today we're talking about, as the teens were saying, Pastor Shaan, you see, I slept late. Why did you sleep late? You see, I had homework, but then there's this nini that I had to watch. And then you're saying the exams are hard. But you left the wisdom of the wise out of it while you were studying. You did not have time to seek him. You had time to study biology, and the biology left you because you left the author of biology. So there is something we have to understand, that there are things that God cuts away, not because he's against us, not because Mungu anakuonea, we have nothing, but because he loves us. This is a truth I want us to carry from the beginning, that pruning is not proof that God has rejected you. In fact, according to the verse that we have read, it is the fruitful branches that get pruned. You are pruned because God sees fruit in you and He wants more. He wants more. But you see, sometimes as we grow, as we bear fruit, we accumulate a lot of clutter. We accumulate too much because now we feel we have the capacity to do. And so we take on too much. And God is saying, the more you take on, the less productive you're going to be. The more you stretch yourself, the less productive you're going to be. I need you to drop this. In the gardener's hand, pruning is being shaped for more. Shaped to walk in the newness of the life that He's calling you and I to. I highly doubt that when Elder Jesse goes to the shamba and finds a dead branch, he takes time to prune it and leaves the one that is, bearing fruit. Yani ameipata hapo chini, says, let me first prune this one. It doesn't make sense. He prunes the one that has potential for more. He declutters it so that it gets more sunlight. So that it's not sharing, it gets more water, it gets whatever it needs so that it can have more. And so the gardener does not prune a dead branch. There is nothing to prune. There's nothing that he's looking forward to. He prunes the living branch, the one that has potential, the one that he has been watching grow. So God is saying to you and I see what you're doing, but I know there is more in you. There is deeper faith. There is stronger character. There is greater impact. But first, I must remove some things. There is so much you're carrying. You're too crowded. You're too crowded. Too many voices. Too much. You're everywhere. You're like Safaricom. We need to reduce certain things. So what would pruning look like for us today? What would it look like? A disappointment that redirects your heart towards something better. A relationship that comes to an end, even one you valued deeply. Today in the teens we said that He cannot promise us the whole world when nabada anakaa kwa nyumba ya mama yake. He can't promise us the whole world na bado anakaa kwa nyumba ya mama yake. It doesn't help. And so that relationship comes to an end. And you're thinking, I cannot live. Well, I feel like I'm going to die. Hey, I cannot imagine my life without him, you had a life before them. So God comes in and says, where? That fruit that I want. You're not going to play. I'm calling you to be an evangelist and you're spending 10, 15 hours. Doing what? So He comes in. And hata sijui nilifanya nini. Haujui. You didn't prioritize well. A door closing when you are convinced, for us who are in business, that God had opened it. A season of waiting when everyone around you seems to be advancing. Today, I had an opportunity to listen to the last 5 minutes almost of the youth service. And the speaker said, you may feel like for you, people are 20 steps ahead. And for you, you seem 40 steps behind. And you're wondering. And she said, you know what? As long as you're in God's will, those 40 spaces behind are right where you need to be to do and have the impact that God has called you to have. So that closed door is you being refined. A challenge that exposes fear or pride that you did not know was even there. That is how pruning would look like for us in the everyday, ordinary life. For us as parents, when a child gives you back the word that you gave them, and you're thinking, Lord, hold me. And then in that moment, you see yourself. You know, my granddaughter last time told me, I told her not to go somewhere, and I told her, T, please behave yourself. And in that same breath, I went where I told her not to go. And she told me, Glamour, you need to behave yourself. get out of the kitchen. But you see, I was telling her to get out of the kitchen because she doesn't have to be there. But in that moment, I stopped and asked myself, what am I putting out? In that moment, it called me for a meeting. Glamour, you behave yourself. You have to behave. Problem is you don't listen. The same statements, you don't listen. She told me, Glamour, you don't listen. Behave yourself. Come out of the kitchen. That was a moment of pruning for me. Of being holy, being refined nicely. This mouth. What does it look like for you in your house? Every day. Many of us know what it is to plant. When you plant, when you prune a plant, you're not harming it. You're helping it to focus its energy on what matters. Listen to what the book of Hebrews says in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 5 to 6. I'm reading the NIV. A farmer who does not prune, is an enemy to the plant, and the reverse is true. This is what Hebrews says. My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as a son. If you're not being pruned, you need to check your identity. If you're not being pruned, you need to check your positioning. He's saying he disciplines the ones he loves, and he chastens the ones he calls his son. So do not despise the season you're in. If God is cutting away something, even the good, it is because he loves you and is not finished with you. He loves you too much to leave you where you are. One of the statements that sometimes I've made to my children when they're growing up, I told them, acha tu niwachie Mungu. And most times they say, pause there. Please don't, before you leave me for God, first deal with me. When you say that statement, madhe hiyo si mzuri, usiniachie Mungu, usiniachie ulimwengu, mimi niko tu hapa. Because love disciplines. Because in that language, in that statement to them, umeniacha, it means you don't see value, you don't see any point in correcting me, so you're leaving me. It means you don't see fruit, you don't see value, you don't see impact. So for the youth and young people, don't read parental correction, a rejected application, a relationship that has ended as God abandoning you. The hard moment at school, at home, in your relationship could be God pruning you for something better. For us parents, men and women listening today, do not interpret God's delay as rejection. Sometimes the waiting room is his workshop. That's where we are tended to. That's where our character, we pray for patience. Hakuna duka yenye anaenda kutoa patience akupe. It's in the workshop, in that waiting room, that your character of patience is being refined. You pray for wisdom. It's in that waiting room when challenges come and you lean on to the wisdom of the wise and you draw wisdom from scripture and that wisdom is grown. It is in the waiting season that is his workmanship. That is his workshop. It is God building something in you that your next season will need. That life that you want, it is in the pruning process that it is being formed. The character in you to sustain it is being formed. Number 2, since pruning comes from love, the next question is, what exactly does God remove when he prunes? Pruning removes that which hinders growth. Pruning removes that which hinders growth. God is not taking away your joy. He's removing what is blocking it. God is not taking away your joy. He's removing what is blocking it. The psalmist In Psalm 66, verse 10 says, the New King James Version, "For you, O God, have tested us. You have refined us as silver is refined." There is this song of Refiner's Fire. I used to sing it very often. I sing it very less. Because I realized the confession of my mouth, when it starts refining, it is not a good thing, but it is a good thing. A skilled farmer knows that not every branch is helpful. Some branches look green and full of life on the outside, but they are draining the vine. They consume energy, they consume water, they consume sunlight, they consume space, and as long as they remain, there is limited harvest. And the same is true for our lives. There are habits that need to go. There is character that needs to be formed. There are mindsets. You know, there's sometimes when you have a conversation with someone, and in that moment you're saying, Lord, release. Release. Lord, this is the moment of Romans chapter 12, my God. Please, as we speak, this is the moment of Romans chapter 12. Why? Because there are some mindsets that we have that need to be pruned, need to be changed, because if we continue thinking like that, we will remain where we are. I am so blessed and thankful that I belong to Trinity House International Ministries. I don't say it lightly. It is a house full of African men who are unashamed to carry their children. I am telling you, there is a mindset that needs to change. You know, there is a day one of my sons they were seated talking, and he was like, "Mimi nikiwa siwezi osha vyombo." I needed Jesus in that moment. But before he could lay hold of me, his siblings laid hold of him. And the examples they gave are men seated in this house. Mindset. How do you want to be a father like minister so-and-so, like elder so-and-so, father so-and-so, and you can't wash dishes? Lakini unaweza pata... And you can't beba mtoto. Me, actually, before I got to know who Minister Charles' wife was, I knew that he was a father. Because he was carrying here with Peter everywhere. Everywhere. Not like Safaricom, but he was everywhere, There's some mindsets that need to change in each one of us. To look alive on the outside that relates with what is on the inside. That when God says that you are the priest over your home, you don't delegate it to your wife, because yeye ndiye anakanga na watoto. It takes two. Mi bora nimepatiana school fees. Before afike school fees, kunaendaje? That is what pruning does. That it changes, it removes what would hinder growth. There are some mindsets that cannot go places. Me, I cannot be led by a woman. You are born by a woman. There are some mindsets that need to be changed. Kwani ni PK, mkono yake imefanyiwa? This, and you're going to eat. Am I communicating, young people? We want a wedding, but we're not ready for marriage. There's some mindset that needs to change. Because when they don't, they quietly drain the life that God has placed within us. And God says, I love you too much to leave you there. I love you too much to think that the Bible is for Sunday. I love you too much to think the people that do ministries because wako na masaa. Or they have already arrived. Sisi tuna hustle. Au washafika, so wako na time. Elder Jen, washafika. Ndio maana uko na masaa ya kutumikia hapa church. Sisi tuna hustle bana. Nikuja hapa Tuesday na niko na hustle. Friday, unaona, nyinyi mko na time. Now you see that the elders, the pastors that were chosen here, the ministers, washafika. Sisi manzee hatuna hiyo masaa. Sisi ni youth, lazima tu hustle. You will hustle. And you stay hustling because your mindset has refused to change. And you wonder why God, you keep thinking God has forgotten. You know, you've forgotten the principle. You know, that habit. God prunes that habit that has you stuck in a cycle, year in, year out, naombea hiyo kitu. An attitude of bitterness or unforgiveness that poisons every relationship around you. You're asking, what does God prune? That secret sin that you've been excusing and putting off, that is hindering you, that no one knows apart from God. And then he comes, na kuanike, and you're like, sasa. That is pruning. Pride that whispers, I can handle this on my own. That fear that stops you from obeying what God has clearly told you to do. That toxic relationship, a distraction that is slowly pulling you away from your calling. Let me be honest with us. When God starts cutting, it hurts. It is confusing. And you and I will find ourselves crying, Lord, why me? Now, after you've said why me, there's another question I want you to add. Lord, what are you refining in me? As you take away this job, my very source of sustenance, how am I supposed to provide for my family? Rent is due. Lord, why me? Wengine wanapata promotion, mimi ndio naachishwa kazi. Why me? You pause and say, Father, what are you refining in me? Why are you cutting away the very thing that I need? What is it? Because you see, a person can be busy in church, singing in choir, serving as an usher, and still be carrying bitterness. That's why God prunes. The service is real, but the fruit is blocked. That is why God refines. Because you can serve and the service is real, but the fruit is blocked. You come here day in, day out, you serve. And instead of exuding joy, people are wondering, anakaa kaa analazimishwa. That is why God prunes. He cuts away what is unnecessary so that you don't just serve, but there is fruit in your service. You don't just plant. You're not just a mango tree. There is a fruit. Today a question was asked in our class. Is fruit for me or for? Fruit is for. Oh, the mango tree does not eat its own fruit. It's you who comes and eats. But it cannot give what it doesn't have. So it is giving you. So you have the fruit. Ni yako. It is in you. But it is not for you. That can only happen if you're refined. Otherwise, you become stingy with what you're supposed to release. God blesses you, but because the character is not refined, because the mindset is not changed, God explicitly tells you, hiyo kitu umepata leo peana, and you're thinking, nikifanya math haingii, God next time. And so when he comes, he takes it away and you begin now praying, you're like, God, ukinipea lazima nitarudisha. Then he tests you. Character. Even when it does not feel or look like it. This is a truth I want you to carry. Trust that God is not removing your joy. He's removing what is blocking your joy. He's not punishing you. He is preparing you. That is holy refinement. A process where God burns away whatever is unnecessary so that what remains is not only pure and strong, but is needed for the season and the assignment for his glory.